Thanks, Ada.
And you're free to report.
Oh, yeah? I'll just project, that's fine. I waited tables for a long time. Honestly, it was close to only a couple years, but it felt like decades. From five-star fine dining establishments to overnight shifts at greasy spoon diners, I have seen the broad spectrum of serving establishments and have a deep-seated appreciation for anyone in the service industry. I believe in over-tipping, and it surprises nobody that I'm married to a server. My friends know better than to complain about the service at a place because I will bend over backwards to excuse inattentive or even hostile wait staff. Maybe they were under a lot of pressure from the manager. Everybody has bad days. Are you sure you were as polite as possible when ordering everything on the side? I have also had more than my share of bad first dates. I have had potential romantic partners get so drunk they fell off their bar stools. When I first moved to Chicago in October of 2006, a guy I met at a bar invited me to a costume party without telling me two important details. It was a family party, and he had recently come out to them. I showed up and was given instant boyfriend status to a guy I had just met. Although that was preferable to the aunts who accused me of being the reason he was gay. I was the corrupting influence even though I didn't know his last name. Worst of all, he was not there when I arrived. I stuck around at that party for half an hour explaining to cousins and siblings that it was supposed to be a first date and enduring angry glares from older generations before he finally showed up. I forget what my costume was, probably a cowboy hat or whatever accessory I could get for 20 bucks at Party City and passed off as a costume. He showed up wearing angel wings, a pipe cleaner halo, and shorts, and nothing else. He was already drunk and accused his entire family of not supporting him before passing out on the couch. I grabbed an unopened bottle of wine and went home to remove his number from my phone. So yeah, serving experience, bad dates. These collided once, and I don't mean I had a date with a bad tipper. That has happened, but it's simply been the unceremonious end to an evening, even ones that have been going really well up until that point. No, the conundrum I want to present is when I was on a first date, again at a bar. We had met when a friend of mine asked me to march in the Pride Parade that year with his Buddhist temple. I am not Buddhist, and I don't know if there was a shortage of gay Buddhists that year or what, but I didn't mind doing my friend a favor. The guy I was marching next to was cute, and we got to talking. I looked forward to getting to know him one-on-one, and we made plans to meet in North Halstead later that week for a drink. Maybe 2 or 3. 4 tops. We arrived at the bar, and it was early, not crowded. We started talking and sharing mutual interests. What was the last book you read? Fiction, non-fiction, short story collection? Who's your favorite author? What's your favorite genre? We were already making plans to go to a book fair together, and it hadn't even been 10 minutes. Then, the shirtless bartender came over and took our orders. And he was very friendly and polite. I made sure to maintain eye contact the whole time to make sure my date didn't get the wrong idea. When the bartender dropped off for the drinks, he continued to be friendly and polite and engaged in some light conversation. He was overly attentive to me, which did not sit well with my date. And I know every guy entertains this fantasy that service industry workers are all secretly into them. Every barista I've ever known has had to fend off several creepy weirdos who think doing the bare minimum of her job means she's totally hitting on him. This was not that. I could feel heat radiating off of my date whenever the bartender came by to check on us or get us water unprompted. It was never simply work duties, it was always accompanied with more conversation and curiosity about where we were from or what part of the city I lived in. I don't know if the bartender was interested in me or not, but my date seemed to feel he was interested enough to be jealous in the first place. I tried to be terse in my replies, but I didn't want to be rude. More importantly, I didn't want the bartender to think I was being rude. He was still making the drinks, and he was making them with heavy pours. I didn't want to jeopardize that. And it's not like I was ignoring my date. We were having a very nice time whenever the bartender wasn't anywhere near us. I tried to not so subtly explain why I didn't tell the bartender to leave us alone by going into detail about how I had been a server and understood the dynamics of customer upselling and interaction, and how I was always deferential to wait staff. Unfortunately, the bartender heard some of this and started trading industry stories. Who was the worst customer you ever had? Who was the worst manager you ever had? What was the craziest shift you ever had? In hindsight, I should not have told the story about the guy who proposed to his date at my restaurant and she said no, but stayed to order dessert. It's a funny story, and all three of us enjoyed it. I don't want to make it sound like I was playing into the bartender's attention, although it is nice to be wanted. I was invested in the date. I wanted it to go well, but whenever the bartender engaged in conversation that went beyond, here are your drinks, I didn't know what to do. I started scrambling in my brain over how to resolve this. Do I ignore the bartender? Do I tell him to leave us alone? I couldn't do that. Do I explicitly reassure my date that I'm just trying to be polite? That might embarrass him or make him feel self-conscious. Perhaps I should suggest we go somewhere else. But I didn't really budget for dinner, and I was definitely getting my money's worth on those drinks. Eventually, gloriously, the situation resolved itself. I don't remember exact details on most of the conversations that took place that night, but I remember the following exchange almost word for word. The bartender was complaining about how hard it was to find parking, and I said I didn't drive. Oh, why don't you drive? I don't have a license, and I like taking the CTA. It gives me a chance to catch up on reading. Reading? The bartender recoiled like a child faced with a plate of broccoli. The very idea of reading was repugnant to him. He literally backed away and put his hands up defensively. And that's when a wave of relief washed over my date. All was forgiven. All was forgotten. His mood brightened immeasurably. This was now the best time he'd had in a long time. Because my date realized that it didn't matter how chiseled the bartender's abs were or how perfect his skin was. The way he may as well have strangled several adorable kittens right in front of us if that was his attitude about reading. My date had nothing to worry about. That bartender was now the ugliest guy in the room as far as either of us were concerned. It was perfect. The rest of the date went so well, he didn't even notice that I left the bartender a 25% tip. Thank you.